Hello, welcome back to the YouTube channel of Bethel Evangelical Free Church Hanley. I'm Pastor Gervais Charmley, and this is another church in Leicestershire. This is the Church of St. Peter, Wymondham. Now, there are two villages in England, well, there's a town and a village in England, that have a name spelled this way. This is Wymondham in Leicestershire, which is on no account to be confused with Wymondham in Norfolk. They're pronounced differently. They are spelled exactly the same. That's English. St. Peter's is a 14th century church. In fact, it's a wonderful example of a 14th century Leicestershire village church. There's quite a lot of money around here at the time. It's mostly wool money. Wool was essentially the powerhouse of the English economy. And so if you go to a wool area like this part of Leicestershire, like the Cotswolds, you'll find these enormous churches. The Cotswolds ones are very often the 15th century, but around here they're 14th century. The 14th century architecture was given the name of decorated, and it's given that name by Thomas Rickman, the Quaker church architect and antiquarian. He's what we call the different periods. He says, well, the 14th century tends to have this decoration stuck on, and so it's decorated. And as we go around this church, we'll see precisely why that is an accurate description of 14th century English church architecture. The walls, as you can see, have been scraped. Thankfully, it's not too gloomy in here because you've got all these great big windows and not a lot of stained glass. So let's have a look around and see what we can see. As usual, then, we start at the west end, at the back end of the nave. We have here the font, certainly restored by the Victorians, but it does appear the bowl is a bit older than that. Underneath we have, always very nice, we have these ball flowers, big ball flowers, so true 14th century style. The roof line has been altered with the insertion of a clerestory in the 15th century. Clerestories, the idea is to let more light in, as you can see up there, and we've got this little window above the chancel arch. Now, before all the plaster was taken off, and back in the medieval era, there would have been a rood screen, and we'll see as we go, when we see where the rood loft would have been just above the pulpit. You can see that door, that opening above the pulpit, and that would be the way into the rood loft, and the rood would be at the front of the loft, and you'd have a doom painting up there above the chancel arch. And sadly, all this is gone because you had this idea that, well, we want to show the stonework. Well, fair enough, but that does involve destroying all the medieval painting underneath. We can't go into the north aisle here. You can see it's blocked off because the roof is a little bit fragile. It's a shame. Victorian Restoration, they put these pews in with these sort of fleur-de-lis style poppy heads. Now, this is one of the great things here. Look at that. That is a corbel, and you can see you've got this grotesque creature. This one's even more grotesque because of the water ingress, and then there's one on the end there. The building is cruciform, that is cross-shaped with, and it's an irregular cruciform building, so it is cruciform with these transepts either side. It's the kind of cruciform where they stuck the transepts on the aisles. We've got these lovely slender columns here, and the capitals of the easternmost full columns are quite good here. You can see here we've got ball flower, we've got the head of an ox, and we've got a human head, so faces and ball flower up in that one. So the pulpit is Victorian. There might have been a pulpit in the 14th century building, but there might not have been. Here we have this lovely capital with all its ball flower, and looking at the back there you can see there's a block doorway that presumably would have led into a gallery at the end there. It does look, actually, that doorway is quite old, and parts of the church well, certainly that arch there is not 14th century, that is 13th century, maybe late 12th, and everything east of it has been replaced and the tower's been partially redone, but still, and again, that beautiful capital, that 14th century decorated, so you see all this decoration, and it tends to become more elaborate as you go east, because that's part of the idea that you're emphasizing the east end. You want people to look east. There is a piscina, so there would have been a side altar there, and then rather awkwardly there would have been wooden steps up there, or maybe they just used a ladder to get up there, into the roof loft. And there you have the other transept. We'll go in there and have a little look at what's in there. And we go up here into the chancel. And although I suspect that window tracery is Victorian, is in proper style. Nice big organ, which does appear still to be in use, and it is by J. Porritt. Yes, J. Porritt of Leicester. We'll just step back here because see something. See, the organ is here, but let me fit all the pipes behind it, or they've fitted some new pipes, and they've had to be fitted on the wall there. Obviously, the pipes in the front are just decoration; they're dummies, but those are real. They're big wooden pipes. The altar is Victorian. The sedilia and piscina also appear to be thought to be 13th century, which again says a big restoration in the middle bit. Quite often, as I said before, the chancel is maintained by the rector and the nave by the parish, and therefore they can be different styles, because one will be restored and the other one won't be at the same time. The drain here is quite interesting. You can see you've got this central sort of nub and then rough quatrefoil drain. They obviously use the sedilia because they've got cushions in them. And you can see memorials to various members, particularly here, they're clergy memorials. Here we have a squint. The idea of a squint is to allow the priest, in this case also to allow the people in the aisle there to see what's going on at the high altar, but also to allow the priest at the altar there to coordinate with the priest at the high altar, so they can say Mass at the same time. And having multiple Masses, of course, in the medieval Catholic understanding made things better. And you've got these little label stops, these figures. Now the south side, we have these angels around here. So this angel is holding, because he's holding the cross, and it also looks like he's holding the scourge, so instruments of the Lord's Passion. And these were very important. This fellow is holding the hammer and the nails, so yes, instruments of the Passion. Here, I'm quite sure what this fellow's holding. Anyway, we are looking at maybe a crown of thorns, because this fellow is blowing a trumpet. And very typically decorated. Now, one of the functions of transepts, of course, was to be side chapels, and they would often be memorial chapels. Now, we're not entirely sure who this knight is, but obviously he is a knight. He has been left outside, I think, at some point. But maybe not. Maybe it's just that generations, hundreds of years of children touching him to find out, look how smooth he is. And there's his lion. That's quite a good lion. As we said, medieval artists didn't really know what lions looked like. And so you've got these various memorials in here that deal with folk who have and here there's from the outside, but whatever's in the middle has basically been lost. But But here we have a gentleman who's gone missing, but his wife is still there. But there we have this knight here. And it's a beautiful, beautiful example of this decorated, Leicestershire decorated. Unfortunately, Leicester's not very good at having open churches, and certainly hasn't been over the last several years. But Wymondham is always open. They like to. They say we open the building for people. So yeah, a little bit of medieval carving here, remains of a screen perhaps. So that's the inside here at Wymondham. Wymondham. So I'm pretty sure it's in Leicestershire now, although it's fairly close to the border with Rutland. And it's very, very close to a number of other interesting churches, so you can make a full day of visiting this area. Framland Church Trail even exists, so you can go around these different churches in what's called Framland, this is being one of them. So that's the inside at Wymondham. Let's go outside and see what's outside at Wymondham. And so here we are outside at Wymondham, and you can see behind me the tower with the spire, and also these two different types of stone. You've got this limestone here, and then lower down you've got ironstone. Ironstone is a common building material in this part of the world because basically it's the local stone, and it has advantages and disadvantages. The big disadvantage, of course, is that it's actually fairly soft, so it erodes quite quickly. The advantage is there's lots of it, and so you have these ironstone churches. The other thing is it's this rather nice sort of biscuit, ginger biscuit colour. So we'll have a look around and again point out the features of this building: the tower, the nave and aisles, and of course the chancel and the different dates. And I think this is the first Leicestershire ironstone church we're going to look at in this series. So we'll have a look around. Now there go the bells. And nice bells. So let's look around. So St Peter's Wymondham, it may not be as grand as Wymondham Abbey, which is spelled the same, pronounced differently, but it is certainly a grand building. There's certainly money here. And we noted the inside, some of that really high quality carving. You can see in the 15th century they've said, well, we need a big clerestory and these big windows that show off our wealth, that show off the importance of the parish. So you get this, and it's a very typical building for the area, which is why it's a good one to look at. And it's so completely different, of course, from Stapleford down the road, which is completely different. Although there are, of course, two other churches by the same architect at the same kind of time. But this is very, very typical medieval Leicestershire church. There's money here, so it's one of the bigger ones. We have the War Memorial, and you can see there's the porch which leads through, and you see the door within. It says, "Please come in, we are open." It's a very nice thing to say. And looking up to that spire, typical 14th century spire up there, really. The 14th century is, there we have a gargoyle in the middle there. 14th century, period when you get these spires, then the 14th century spires tend to be this enclosed by a parapet rather than what you find with, for example, the 13th century. You get these roach spires. See, there's the old school to one side. Very, very common because, of course, the school was maintained by the church. That's the church school. And here we are down the north side. North side is in shadow here. The Lich Gate. Now, Lich Gates, I've probably mentioned what Lich Gate means. Lich is an old English word for a corpse. That's why it's sometimes used in video games and fantasy works to refer to an animated corpse, but literally a lich is just a corpse. So it's the corpse gate, and it's the gate by which the coffin would come in. And most Lich Gates are 19th, 20th century for that reason. Well, simply because they're wooden, aren't they? Most of them. and so where they existed they'd be taken down, and then they're restored in the great paroxysm of church restoration that is the Victorian era. We shouldn't be too hard on them. A lot of these buildings would have fallen down without them, and a good number of buildings did fall down without them. So here we are around the back, because the north side is very much the back. You see here the north doorway. Now, one of the reasons we can do this, and down here, is we can see the carvings in the local limestone. This one, unfortunately, has lost half of it, but this limestone has been brought in for the detailing. Now, here we have an interesting memorial to Reverend Richard Cragg, who was 33 years minister of this parish, appointed curate in 1796, rector in 1823. Now, it's a good long period, but he's nearly 40 years master at the Free Grammar School, and that's the thing, you see, is that he shares being the grammar school master with being the curate and then the rector. The interesting thing again with this is that this is part of the world. There were a lot of these free grammar schools, and some of them in the 19th century they get these really go-ahead headmasters who say, I'm going to turn my grammar school into a big, well, what we in England call public schools, and then the reason is there for the public benefit, but of course these days a public school is a big posh private school. And so you get places like Oakham and Stamford, and they develop these big schools. But then you've got places like Wymondham, where you don't get a go-ahead headmaster, and it just becomes the village school, and eventually ends up closing down. There's a building on the edge of the village called the Old Grammar School. So there we've got Victorian vestry, and here we have east window, which certainly the tracery has been restored in the 19th century. You can see they intended to carve these stops at the end, but they never have, so they're just these big blocks are waiting, and they will carry on waiting for a very long time. It's an interesting thing to do with your house. So this is Wymondham. As I said, it's a lovely place. As with Stapleford, it's one I've been meaning to go to for a while, because Stapleford's unique, Stapleford's special. Wymondham is typical of an area that we haven't really been to before with the video camera. So here we go, Wymondham. Wymondham. And so that is St Peter's, Wymondham. I say it's a magnificent building, and it's a good example of these sort of bigger Leicestershire ironstone village churches. So thank you for watching, and may God bless you and keep you until next time.